I used to scroll on TikTok for over 3 hours a day, but in 2023, I overcame my addiction, and since then I've saved over 2,000 hours. Most of those I've put into martial arts, and I've had 3 kickboxing fights since. And so in this video, I want to walk you through 5 big lessons about quitting TikTok that I've learned that I wish I knew earlier. The first one is to understand how much time you're actually spending on the platform. So you can go into settings right now on your phone and see your screen time for TikTok, and then you multiply that number, like the number of hours you're on it daily, with 3. If you live 50 more years, that's going to be about how many years you're going to be spending on TikTok. So if that number is 2 and you live 50 more years, you might live more than that, but let's just say 50. That's going to be about 6 years of your life, because you have about 16 waking hours every day. And if 1/8 of that, like 2 hours, is spent on TikTok, that's going to be about 1/8 of 50 more years, which is about 6 years, right? Just think about that. 6 years, bro. 6 years, right? Like when we put it into context like this, it seems obvious, but when we're in the moment, it's kind of like we're just drowning in the fucking scrolling, right? Isn't that it? Like, it's just one more hit, it's just one more video, and you don't even realize it. It's like you tell yourself you're gonna fucking grab your phone and check something, right? But then you scroll for hours and hours and hours, and an entire evening has passed, right? So I just want to contextualize this for you. Like, just let that number sink in. Go into your phone, go into settings, go into screen time, and then scroll down to the TikTok little symbol app, and you'll see your number, like your daily average of the hours that you're spending there, and multiply that number by 3, and that's how many years you're going to spend on the platform. And so I just want you to ask yourself that question: are those years worth it for you? 6 years of your life, or 9 years, or 12 years of your life, is it worth it, right? So just keep that in mind the next time you get the urge to start scrolling. Now, the second big lesson is to understand why you're even addicted in the first place. So there is a vicious cycle to scrolling on TikTok, to overstimulation. First, you indulge, you get the craving to grab your phone and open the app, right? You indulge, and then your dopamine goes through the roof. You've probably heard dopamine online, but basically what it is motivation. So you can think about dopamine as a molecule in your brain that creates motivation for you and propels you forward to take action on something. It's the molecule of pursuit, of the hunt. It's not necessarily about pleasure, but merely motivation and the desire to do something, right? And so when we scroll, we get a little pleasure hit, right? And then that triggers dopamine release in our brain, because we want it again. So our brain motivates us to keep going because it's so frictionless to keep going. Like, we get this instant reward without any suffering, without any pain, without any friction. And so you keep scrolling, and then your dopamine goes through the roof. You get so much motivation to keep going. You're in a flow state. You lose track of time. You just keep going. It's so hard to, like, you can't pull yourself away from it. Your subconscious mind tells you that it's wrong, that you shouldn't be wasting your time like this, but you keep going because it's just fucking hooked you, the app. And then when your dopamine levels go through the roof, your brain starts developing something called tolerance. And tolerance is kind of like, or when we're talking about tolerance in the biochemical sort of biological sense, right? It's kind of like taking steroids, actually, if you've been into the gym culture. And so basically what steroids do is that they give you a fuck ton of testosterone, basically, artificially, but then your body stops producing natural testosterone. And that's why big bodybuilders, when they go off, when they hop off gear, when they stop taking anabolic steroids, they have serious problems with erectile dysfunction and shit like that, with their libido. And basically what happens is that your body gets a fuck ton of testosterone injected into it and says, well, we've already got enough of this, right? We don't need to be producing more. We don't need to spend resources, spend effort producing testosterone if we are abundant with testosterone, right? We don't need it, because our brains and bodies have not really changed since the fucking caveman times. And what's going to happen then? Your brain and body are going to want to preserve energy, because if you're on the savannah, you want to preserve energy. And so if you see that there is abundance in testosterone in your body, then you're going to stop producing it as much. And that's the same thing with dopamine. You get a lot of dopamine from scrolling on TikTok, but then your body stops basically producing natural, sort of normal dopamine. And this is the key point. When you stop scrolling, what happens then? You go off the app, but then your dopamine levels are depleted, they are drained. And so they are super low, and you have zero motivation to do anything else, right? And then what happens then is that the only thing that is stimulating enough for you is to keep scrolling, is to open the app again. And then your dopamine levels plummet even more. And at some point, you're just addicted to this drug, but it's not even pleasurable, right? That's the thing that happens. And so your brain develops tolerance, and it creates this vicious cycle that just keeps you hooked in this addiction. It's so heinous, it's so insidious, right? What used to feel stimulating now feels normal, and what used to feel normal now feels boring. That's what happens, and it's so fucking destructive. Because why? The other things in your life that you want to do, they're not stimulating enough, right? When you want to go to the gym, when you want to study, when you want to work on your business, when you want to do the martial arts, right? They are not stimulating enough for your brain, and so you're so much more likely to just procrastinate on them. And so the third big lesson is that if you do procrastinate things like your studies, for example, try this. Number 1, delete TikTok from your phone. Number 2, wait 14 days. Number 3, enjoy a new attention span. And so your attention span is kind of like your ability to focus on one thing for an extended period of time on the micro level, not necessarily on the macro level, like if you want to focus on a big goal for 1 year, for example, but I'm talking about in the moment, right? When you're reading a book, when you're writing an assignment, when you're doing a workout, when you are just speaking with people and you want to be present with them, right? And so what TikTok does is that it trains your mind to switch focus and switch context all of the time, right? You scroll, and you get into new sort of conversations, new environments all of the time. And what happens then? You train your mind not to be able to focus on one thing for an extended period of time, but to switch focuses all of the time. And then when you want to sit down and read and do the assignment, do the study for the exam or whatever you want to work on, what happens then? You procrastinate like a motherfucker, right? You fucking procrastinate because your attention span is so fucked up, and you can't even, like, if you were to read a fucking page of a book, you would barely remember what you just read, right? That's the thing. Now, the fourth big lesson is to understand how TikTok is being used by China to subvert the West. This is more of a higher level concept, but just hear me out, right? China owns TikTok. TikTok is owned by a company called ByteDance, B-Y-T-E Dance, which is owned by the Chinese government, the CCP. And so all the data that is collected from the Westerners who are using the app, the Europeans, the Americans, right? It's sent to the Chinese government. And as you probably know, like, the US and China are kind of in a sort of economical global battle, you know, that kind of stuff, right? They've been rivals for a long time, since the Second World War, actually. And so basically what happens is that TikTok is being used as a Trojan horse. So if you've never heard about a Trojan horse, let me explain it like this. Like 1,000 years ago, roughly, I think it was 1154, there was a war between the Greeks and the Trojans. And so the Trojans had this massive castle, basically, and the Greeks wanted to conquer it, but they couldn't. And so what they basically did was that they gave the Trojans a free gift. They built like 100-meter tall, like a massive wooden horse. And then they put their own soldiers inside of this massive horse, in the belly of the horse. And then they gave it to the Trojans as a gift. And so they weren't able, like previously, they hadn't been able to break into the Trojans' castle, like the citadel, the fortress. But now they just took their massive thing, their fucking horse, and gave it as a gift to them. And then they were able to get their soldiers into the castle, into the citadel, into the fortress. And from there, they were able to capitalize and eventually beat the Trojans, right? And so what TikTok basically is that it's presented as this gift to America and to Europe, right? And so everyone's on it, scrolling away. They're getting all these pleasurable feelings when they're scrolling and shit like that. But the algorithm in Europe and in America, I'm from Sweden personally, but like Western Europe and America, the algorithm promotes sexual content. It promotes garbage, useless entertainment content. It promotes overstimulating, hyper-edited, sort of just pleasurable, useless content, right? But what kind of content do you think China promotes to its own algorithm? Really think about it. Do you think that the Chinese government wants its children, or fucking its army of people that are going to serve the country, like the future generations? Do you think they want them to be exposed to this kind of content that we're exposed to in the West? Fuck no. That's why they've engineered the algorithm to promote stuff like science, art, and sport, like fucking astronauts and architecture, that kind of stuff, to promote everyone to be more productive members of society. They're basically fucking up their enemy, the West, from the inside, right? Like all this World War III stuff, like we're not going to be fighting in World War III, like with nuclear things like that. That's not going to happen. And the reason is that both sides will just lose too much. But what has happened is that China has literally fucked the West up in the inside, and the entire, like, from let's say 13 to 25 years old, everyone is a fucking dopamine fiend these days. Everyone is scrolling away. Everyone has a shit attention span. Nobody's productive, right? And so that's what's happened. The enemy is using a Trojan horse, like seemingly a gift, to demoralize and beat their enemy from the inside. And so this is a huge thing, and it's really interesting when you look back at history and see how these kinds of tactics have been used and how they're actually used today, even though nobody seems to be aware of it. Now, the fifth big lesson is the importance of setting up your digital environment if you want to quit scrolling on TikTok. One thing I've done that's been super effective for me is that I put my phone on grayscale. So grayscale, when you enable it on your phone, is kind of like making your phone black and white. You're making your phone black and white. You're eliminating all the colors for the spectrum. Everything's going to be gray, basically. And so what happens is that the content that you see, let's say TikTok, is going to be so much less stimulating, and your brain is going to, like, the association between TikTok and the reward of stimulation is going to be severed. And so it's actually been really effective for me. Like, it's also backed by studies and like scientists and experiments and stuff like that. And it decreases consumption across all people by 30%. 30%. Like, if you're watching this on your phone, pause this video, go into your settings, search for color filters, and enable grayscale right now. If you're watching this on your laptop, you can do the same, right? Just grab your phone and do the same. And just see how much less stimulating everything is, and how, frankly, how boring everything seems, at least in the beginning. Truthfully, the thing that happens is that you get accustomed to it. Like, it's kind of like the reverse effect of tolerance. The grayscale starts becoming your normal, and it doesn't feel boring anymore. But then what you can do, like a few days from now, if you want to, as a little experiment, is to disable grayscale and then go back onto TikTok and see like all the colors pop up. You'll be amazed at how stimulating it actually is, and you'll realize why so many people are hooked to it. Like, grayscale is one of these things that you can do. It takes 30 seconds, right? 20 seconds to go onto your phone and do that shit right now. And it will save you so many hours in the future. So that's something that I've done. It's been super helpful for me. And once I had this little aha moment, this little experiment where I just clicked disable grayscale and went onto the TikTok app again, I saw how stimulating it was, and I really realized why everyone's fucking addicted. And so those are some of the 5 biggest lessons that I've learned about quitting TikTok. And if you want to quit TikTok as well, you want to save yourself dozens, maybe even hundreds of hours a month, you can DM me the word quit on Instagram, which is linked in the description.